Jose Sharks Calgary Flames tied 4-4 after 4 periods of play in Game 7 of their quarterfinal showdown. We welcome you back to the broadcast center. Like I said, I'm really worried. Oh, I can't watch that monitor anymore.
Now listen, I got the idea. Sharks have got, this is their game plan. You want to know their game plan? Let Calgary tire themselves out. Remember the rope-a-dope?
Absolutely.
That's it. And remember I said they had to have a guy back?
And?
What do you want to say?
You want to show that first?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's watch this now. This is what you have to have now, coaches. Remember this. See the guy coming back? Watch. He acts almost like a defenseman. See, he turns back there, grabs that guy. You can't get excited in overtime. You want to do, but you can't be stupid and get 3 guys caught.
Mike Sullivan is a forward back.
I love that Sullivan.
Yeah, he's been true. You love Sheldon Kennedy.
And Kennedy, what are you picking?
I had Robert Reichel, funny enough, and he had an awfully good chance.
Yes.
Great poke check in the period 2 on another opportunity. There's no question that 19-8, the shots, was it 19-8? I wrote it down, 17-8. And Flaherty, I was worried about him. Jeez.
You know, you often wonder, where's this kid been? How many good goaltenders there are in the minors that never get a shot? You know, and if the other guy doesn't act like an idiot, he doesn't even get a shot. Did you see the one shot in the overtime coming? That he's going out. He's sitting on the bench like that, and he fired a guy. Wasn't that a good one?
When we showed a replay of Ulf Dahlen's goal. By the way, this is far and away the longest overtime. Ulf's at 12:21 of that game. Right. It's the only one to go 12 minutes in the overtimes we've had to date. Now, the next little jewel that you picked out in the period was a conversation at the Flames bench.
Well,
what was this about?
What happens is it's getting kind of, everybody's tripping. I could see it's getting a little worse, little worse, little worse. So what happens is Fraser goes over and warns both benches. Now, look.
They'd hauled Makarov down.
Yeah, well, he says, look, here he's telling, don't push me too far now. And Fleury says, yeah, what happened over in that corner there? What, you put, yeah, get out, yeah, what over the corner? Yeah, he wasn't pointing at her. I don't think he was pointing at her. That'd be another face-off. But you got to be careful. Now, you're going to say holding. I know, Andy, you're going to show the one with Handy.
Joe Nieuwendyk got hauled down by Jim Kite, I think it was.
Yeah, but you got to be careful. You let holding go, and you let stuff go. But if you high-stick a guy in a face or really do something like that, that's embarrassing, and you got to be watching. That's the one thing you don't embarrass them in overtime.
In the old days, it was just taboo. You did not call a penalty in overtime.
And I loved it that way. If you went to both coaches, you said, look, you want something called, both of them say, let it go. And now we're going to show, now the referees show a lot of guts now. Calling, yes, Andy called it in overtime.
Do you remember the penalty? Don't show it yet.
I remember it all the time in the papers. Andy got guts, calls. Let's see.
Well, let's hold it. I didn't remember it that well, but John Paddock, Pat Quinn was the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't think he's ever forgiven Andy for this penalty. No. John Paddock was a member of the Flyers, scored in both games 5 and 6, tremendous. But it's the first game. It's at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Yeah. Jimmy Watson gets the penalty. See if you think this should have been a penalty.
Well, wait a minute before you run it. The thing was why Pat was so mad is that nothing like this had been called before, and Jimmy never ever thought anything would happen like that. And after the game, Andy was a big hero because he called it. Now the referees all call it. For a while there, that's all they called.
And Andy was in there for Pat Quinn tonight in a key game at the Kiel Center. Let's look and see if you think you'd have called Jimmy Watson for holding here as the Islander breaks in on goal.
Lane for New York to Wayne Merrick, number 11. Merrick to Nystrom. Nystrom over to Tonelli. And then Lynchman pokes it away for the Flyers. Headmanning it to Barber, but hold on. A penalty call.
Guy look like no helmet, eh?
Well, Gary said it would have to be a good scoring chance.
But the thing is, if you take a look at that, what are you going to show?
No, this is the goal. 2:08 was the penalty in OT, and 4:07 right at the end of the power play.
See what happened there is, well, that's okay. What happened there is the guy had already taken the shot, and it really looked bad, and they'd let murder go in overtime before. I mean, absolute murder. Then all of a sudden, this one comes out of the blue, and the guy had already taken the shot. That's why Pat was mad. I don't like any, unless it's a guy going in on a breakaway, let him play it, and I can hear the guy, oh, well, if it's a penalty, it's a penalty.
No, I'm with you. I've driven home too many nights thinking that was a good call. Too bad about the power play goal. And that was Dan Kelly, play-by-play. Little jewel for you, Dan. We'll have more of our coverage of Game 7 at Calgary. The Sharks and the Flames tied 4-4 on Molson Hockey Night in Canada in the Stanley Cup playoffs on CBC. That was a shot of Bill Baroko's Cup winner, 1951, when all 5 games of the Stanley Cup final went to overtime, the Leafs winning it 4-1. Joining me now from the Olympic Saddle Dome is Calgary Flame Jim Poplinski, a co-captain on the 1989 Stanley Cup edition. Jim, what's your thoughts on the game?
Well, I think that we weren't as intelligent as we could have been in the first 45 minutes, and about 5 minutes into the third period, we started to play the game that I think we should have played at the start of this hockey game, led by Otto, Kennedy, and Cruz. I just loved the way those guys were playing, and I think it rubbed off on us, and we carried that into overtime, and that's why we've outshot San Jose 17 to something in that last 20 minutes.
It's good to see Joel drive into the net, right?
You bet. Just like, even though Grape says it was kicked in, that's the hockey that he loves, and I was a little disappointed watching in the dressing room when he was talking about that thing being kicked in. Come on, Grapes.
I think he wanted to make sure you'd come on in the next intermission if there was one, and this guaranteed it. You know, Jim, the thing I hear about the Flames a lot, though, is that Calgary has a tendency with all their talent to go out and run and gun foolishly and take maybe stupid penalties, trying to be aggressive, do things that they believe they have to do to be the top team that they are, instead of being patient. Is that maybe why you think you sat back a bit?
Well, I'm not sure what the reason is, Ron. When I look back on teams that I've played on that have had real confidence and have won a lot of games, consistency has been the key to our game. And I think at times, since I've joined this team, we would have a little bit of success and perhaps get ahead of ourselves and not play a solid, consistent game. And I think at times in this series we've done that. I would hope that that after we win this hockey game, we start to realize a little bit more that playing a consistent brand of hockey, combined with the skill level that we have and the grinders that we have, we can go a fair distance. But until we recognize that, we're going to struggle a little bit. It's games like this and series like this, though, that really can allow people to grow, and it's the only way you can grow, by facing some adversity. So hopefully that happens here in the next 20.
And I know, I'm sure in Alberta you've answered this question to death, but not getting a lot of ice time now. I thought you were tremendous when you did get the chance to play, but what's it been like, your return?
Well, it's been very, very interesting, to say the least. I really enjoyed playing 6 of the last 8 games in the regular season. I knew that there was a decent chance that I would not get a chance to play in the playoffs. Michael Nylander came back from an injury and has done a great job. Kelly Kissio got healthy again. Mike Sullivan got healthy, and so I knew that going in. It's been difficult to watch, but it's given me a different perspective on the game, and it's given me a real admiration for guys that come into this league and don't make it right away, and that fight their way up from the minors and sit out games and watch a lot, because it's completely different than what I thought it would be. But having said all that, I wouldn't have traded it for the world, and I'm really happy with the decision I made.
Well, it's like Grape said, you got to solve a kid that's just like that Wade Flaherty at the other end. Good luck.
Thanks very much, Ron.
Jim Poplinski, the Calgary Flames. 4-4 after 4 periods of play. We'll continue our coverage of Game 7 at the Olympic Saddledome as the tradition continues. Molson Hockey Night in Canada and the Stanley Cup playoffs on CBC. In Atlantic Canada, obviously it's getting late. You'll find you're getting a little woozy, and I may start to move around on you a little bit in your TV, but don't let that be a distraction. 4-4 bound for overtime at the Olympic Saddledome. 2 other games tonight as the drama of Game 7 unfolded at the United Center in Chicago, where Denny Savard gets credit for 1 goal. They must have made a change. That's interesting to me. Joe Murphy had 1 and Poulin 26 seconds apart, and that was a big battle for Patrick Poulin to try and solve Felix Potvin. He did it. The Hawks win it 5-2 to advance to the next round, and the Vancouver Canucks 5-3. Pavel Bure with a pair there. Goals 6 and 7 for him. Here's Pat Quinn and his thoughts with Steve Armitage.
With me now, the Canucks president and general manager, Pat Quinn. Pat, how tough it was to sit up there in the box tonight and watch this one.
Oh, it was real hard. We got the early lead for the first time in this series, and then we started to sit back, and to watch us go back to try to retrieve it and get it out of our zone, and we were actually playing to their good, the good part of their game, which is a good forecheck and good goaltending, and I guess just stick-to-itiveness finally prevailed. But in the third period we come out and we put a little pressure on up ice, which we hadn't done in the second period, and for 16 minutes of that third period we didn't give them much.
Kirk McLean worth every penny of that new contract, especially in the second period.
Yeah, he was outstanding, and somehow he's got great concentration, and in the key games he's played really big for us, no question.
The specialty teams have taken a beating over the past couple of years, but I thought in this series they were outstanding.
Well, we want to get referees that call 40 and 50 minutes of penalties on either side during the next series. Our 5-on-5 hockey left a little bit to be desired, but our special teams were really creative and lucky, and thank God for them.
Pat, a comment on the coaching job done by your good friend Ricky Lee.
Well, I have a great deal of confidence in Rick. He's an excellent coach. He was put in tough circumstances You know, before the deadline, I had promised Gerald that I'd move him out of here, and I wanted to live up to that promise to him, and we just ran out of time. I thought I might be able to acquire a veteran guy to come back, but that didn't happen, and then we still had enough, but then Brownie gets hurt, and Dana in the first couple of games, and suddenly we were playing with a lot of young guys, and while we always intended to do that somewhere along the way, we didn't intend to push them in this quickly, but boy, they did a pretty good job.
You still don't know where that jet is heading, but the good news is it's not going back to Vancouver.
Absolutely. While we love it there and love to start the series there this time, we are going to play more hockey, and that's the really important part.
Pat, good luck in the second round.
Thank you, Steve.